Hi, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am making this cute Peter Pan collar linen dress. So let's get started. So I've had this linen fabric for literally years. Like, I think I ordered this fabric online during the pandemic, so probably like 5 or 6 years ago. And I've always had the intention of making a Peter Pan collar dress. I've seen dresses like this on Etsy, so like these, I really love them. They're just a little bit expensive. They're probably worth it, but I haven't been in a place to pay for that. Plus the fact that I own linen to make this project, why would I buy it? So I'm finally doing it. I think sometimes I avoid making projects that are boring just because they're just not fun. Like, you make it and you're like, oh wow, it's a dress, woo! And that's it. As opposed to making something like a wedding dress or a Renaissance fair dress or something more exciting like that. I feel like the payoff is just way greater as opposed to a simple project. I've been, in the past year or two, trying to fight that urge to make something exciting every single time, just because I get more wear out of those boring things and don't really have many occasions to wear my wedding dress or my Ren Fair costume or things like that. Wearing my creations every single day is just, it makes me very happy. So that's what this project is. It's doing something that might be boring, but something I'll wear every single day. So I'm saying all of this like I'm making something boring. And yeah, originally this project was just going to be a simple Peter Pan collar dress with buttons going down the front. Simple. But I decided to add something a little bit extra and still make it wearable, but it just pushes it a little bit further. So I saw this picture and this picture, and I thought it was just so adorable. And I've been meaning to implement this somehow. And I thought this would be a really nice project where I have a solid fabric. I feel like adding a little bit of interest here and there is going to really elevate it to the next level. And also make it something that I actually haven't seen before. Like, I don't think I've seen this style on this dress before. So it'll be really nice to make something super unique for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm doing a Peter Pan collar. I want buttons down the front, only on the bodice, and I want a scallop detail for the buttons. And then I'm also doing a scallop detail on the waist and have the back side gathered. So I'm doing an elastic on the back with ties on the back, and then the front is just going to be normal. And I feel like this is just going to be special, but not too fancy or not too much. Like something I could wear every day, but still feels like it's mine and it's me. So with linen fabric, when I use it, I tend to make projects that I'm okay with being wrinkly. I am not the type of person who irons stuff. Like, I really do not like ironing things. So I am okay with like a button-up shirt being a little bit wrinkly, and linen wrinkles a ton. If you don't know really how it reacts, it just crinkles. It's very crinkly. So when I'm making things out of linen, I always have top of mind that it's going to be casual, it's going to be wrinkly, it should look lived in. And I really like that look. I like that sort of like, you know, you're just sitting in a field or on a farm and you're wearing a linen dress. But the reason I really like linen is because being in Southern California, it just gets really hot. And I find I can tell with like polyester fabric, it just holds everything in. Like, it's just a little greenhouse in my body. It's starting to get warmer down here, and I want more things that are just breathable and easy, but still look cute. And I want it to be something I can reach for. So that's why I'm doing the elasticated waist, or at least partially elasticated waist. So it's easy enough to just throw on, and I don't have to do buttons all the way down. You know what I mean? So I think this is gonna be the perfect summertime dress. Okay, now I'm ready to start. Let's do it. First thing I'm doing is I am cutting out all the pieces. The pattern that I'm using for this is the one I use for my open collar dress. That was my first video here on YouTube. That was last October, and I'm really proud of that make. I actually wear it a lot, but my video editing, I think, has gotten better. Fun fact, for that video, I used my iPhone to film. I use the, selfie mode. That's why it looks like absolute garbage until the very end in the after shots. And I also didn't have a microphone, and I also was shy, so it's only subtitles. I love the dress, and you can watch it if you want. I mean, it's not so egregious, I think. Please don't tell me if it was egregious, but you should go check that out. Anyway, going back to this dress, I'm using that pattern, and I'm just gonna tweak it a little bit. So first thing I'm doing differently is I'm making a new collar pattern that is a Peter Pan collar. I didn't just whip this out of nowhere. For collars, I like to make the piece and then put it around my neck and just make sure it looks right. I feel like sometimes I made them a little too big or a little too small. So I'm just using a paper around my neck to make sure it looks good. I'm keeping the front bodice piece exactly the same though. I really like those vertical darts going down the front. I feel like it's flattering on me and it's easy enough to do. And then for the back piece, I actually extended it about 12 inches or so. And I did this by splitting the piece in half where the dart normally is and just extending it like that. And the reason I'm doing this, like I said before, I want to add elastic on the back. So this is just going to give me enough room to be able to raise the waist over my hips. For the yoke, I'm using the original yoke pattern for the yoke lining, and then the main yoke, so the outer part of the yoke that you see, I'm adding scallops. And then those scallops are gonna have its own facing. So it's just gonna sort of flap. You'll see it in a little bit, but yeah, so I'm cutting those out. I'm also doing a similar thing for the front bodice. So only one side is going to have the scallop and the other is just gonna be a straight line. And I'm also making the facings for those. Now I'm moving on to construction of the bodice. So first thing I'm doing is I'm just adding those darts. And then I'm attaching the scallop facing for the yoke. And I'm sewing along the curves of the scallops. And then I'm clipping the curves and trimming off any excess. And then flipping it and ironing it. Then I top stitch along the curves of the scallops, but you'll see later I ended up not liking this, so yeah, I didn't need to do this. Now I'm gathering the top of the back bodice so that it can fit along the yoke. And then I'm pinning the scallop facing to the back bodice where I just gathered. And then I'm also putting the bottom of the yoke facing so that it sandwiches that gathered edge together. Now I'm pinning the shoulder of the yoke piece to the shoulders of the front bodice. And then I'm rolling it up and finding the other shoulder pieces of the other side of the yoke and sandwiching the front bodice shoulders together. And then after I stitch that down, I'm pulling out the bodice. And now the yoke is nice and finished and clean looking. After ironing it, then I'm going to do some stay stitches around the neck hole and the armholes, just because sometimes it stretches out on me, especially if something like linen, it's kind of a loose weave, and I don't want it to lose its shape and be baggy or anything like that. I don't want it to stretch out, and this is gonna help with that. And now I'm adding a top stitch to the shoulders. Now moving back to the front. I already added interfacing to the facings, the buttonhole facings, and now I'm just folding the facings about a 1/4 inch or so, not the outer edge, but like the one that's gonna hide behind, just because I'm gonna stitch over it later and close it all up. So yeah. Now I'm attaching the button facings, wrong sides together. And same as the other scallops, I'm going to clip those curves and trim any excess. And flip it right side out and iron it down. Then I'm gonna do a top stitch, making sure I catch the folded edges I did with the iron before. So now I'm going back to pick the top stitching I did on the yoke scallop. I just felt like it didn't fit the style I was going for. Like there's just something about having those stitches along the curve that made it feel less casual. I don't know if that really makes sense, but just, I didn't like it. Also, this is a reminder, and one of the things I like about sewing is there's a lot of times, and you know, obviously it depends on the fabric, it depends on what you're doing. You could just pick out stitches and start over. Or, you know, in this case, I didn't like the stitches, you just pick it out and it's like it never happened. And I feel like there's something freeing about that. So if you're new to sewing or you're thinking about sewing, yeah, if you cut a fabric, it's not gonna be able to be pieced back together very easily. But if you stitch something and you make a mistake, you can always unpick it and restitch it. And I don't know, there's something nice about that, that it's not everything in sewing is so permanent. So just a little piece of advice from me to you. So instead of those top stitching, I ended up just doing a horizontal top stitch across the top. And this is just gonna help the yoke pieces stay together and not move around too much. So the only thing flapping up and down is going to be just the edge of the scallops. Now I'm doing French seams for the side seams. Now moving on to the collar. So on one of the collar pieces, I attached interfacing just to add some structure. And then I'm sewing the two collar pieces together, right sides together, just around the outer edge. So not the neck hole edge. And then I'm notching it to remove some of the bulk and flipping it right side out and ironing that down. I'm attaching the edge of the bottom piece, so that's the one that's gonna sit underneath, to the neck hole of the bodice. And then I'm folding the upper piece of the collar so that the raw edges are tucked inside the collar, and then pinning that to the neck hole. And then I'm going to top stitch that down just to close up the collar. Now I'm giving it a nice press and the collar is done. Next, I'm doing French seams for the sleeves. I'm adding some ease to the sleeves, and then I'm attaching the sleeves to the bodice using French seams again. The bodice is almost done. So now I'm digging through my scraps and finding pieces to make bias binding. It's not technically on the bias, but I'm just gonna call it bias binding or bias tape. I'm cutting these strips about 1.5 inches or so, and then I'm cutting the ends at 45-degree angles and attaching them all together using a really skinny seam allowance. And I'm using my bias tape maker to make them into bias binding. So one section of the bias tape is going on the back, and it's going to be the casing for the elastic. The other part of the bias tape is going to be cut into two, folded so that one of the ends of each of those pieces are nice and clean, and then stitched down, and those are going to be the ties. So I don't know if I filmed this or not. Back when I was cutting the other pieces, I made the pocket pieces. The rest of the fabric that I have, I cut them into 2 pieces, and they each measured about 30 by 60 inches. So 30 is going to be the length of the skirt, and 60 is going to be the front, and 60 is going to be the back. So it's gonna be pretty gathered. So 3 inches from the top is where I'm placing my pockets, and I'm attaching the pocket pieces to both sides of each panel using French seams. Now I'm gathering the pieces at the top, and I'm attaching the front panel to the back panel using French seams, making sure to go around the pockets. Now I'm adjusting those gathers so that they fit on the bodice pieces, and I'm making sure to line up the side seams. I'm attaching them using French seams again, and before I attach the front, I added a little basting stitch so that the scallop buttonhole side is on top of the straight buttonhole side, and I'm just basting it so I don't really have to worry about it. I guess I could have pinned it, but I just basted it just so it stays there. And then I'm continuing on the French seam, connecting the front skirt piece to the front bodice. And now I'm going back and just cleaning up any loose threads and basting stitches. Now it's all nice and gathered. Now I could stop here and have just a very ultra loose fitting dress, and that's a look. I think it's cute on a lot of people, just not on me. I don't really like the way that looks on me. I feel like it's just, I need the waist definition, but you could totally stop here. Now I'm going to add the elastic channel to the back part of the waist. And I'm just folding over the raw edges on either side so they're all tucked in nicely. Now I'm threading the elastic through that channel, and before I stitch it down on either side, so those stitches are going to hold down the elastic, I'm tucking in the raw edges of the ties on either side and stitching that all down. I went a little crazy with the zigzag stitches, but it's not going anywhere. I'm always worried when I put an elastic like this that it's gonna slip. Like, over time, this is probably going to be the area that's gonna need touch-ups and to be reattached. So I went crazy with the zigzag stitch here. Now I'm hemming the bottom, and I'm just doing a simple rolling up the raw edge twice, and I'm also hemming the sleeves. Now let's move on to the buttons. So I already did the math for the scallops so that each button can be inside each of the scallops. So I don't need to do any math this time for the buttons because I already did it. So I guess I did have to do the math, but whatever. Thanks, Paso. I'm going to do one buttonhole on each of the scallop. And this time I'm making them vertical just because the scallops themselves, they're pretty narrow. So I didn't want to run the risk of ruining the scallop or, it tearing through. So I'm just sticking with vertical buttonholes. Thanks to a commenter on a previous video, they told me this neat little trick where you put pins on either side of the buttonholes before you seam rip so that you can't seam rip past it and accidentally open up the buttonhole. Worked out really well, and I didn't have any issues with ripping too far with the seam ripper on my buttonholes. So thank you so much for that helpful tip. And then now I'm just lining it up so that it's lined up nicely with the other side, and I'm marking in those holes where the button should go. So for the buttons, I'm using these buttons. They're so cute. I found these buttons in Napori Fabric Town in Japan, and I've been waiting for the perfect project to use them. I really like how they're slightly lighter so you can still see them, like they don't get lost in it. And this dress is, I think, simple enough that the buttons really have a chance to shine. I'm super happy about being able to use such special buttons on this project. And now for the final reveal of this project that I've been putting off for way too long. Thank you for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next video.